Hello, hello. Welcome to today's live stream. Today, we're going to be pivoting a little bit outside of our normal purview of content marketing and SEO. We're going to be talking about sales funnels. It's sort of a mix between sales and marketing, and I think a lot of the folks in our group and in our community are sort of live at this intersection, right? And as content marketers, I think we know that our job sort of spans sales and marketing a lot of times, right? And I'm going to try really hard. Hopefully we don't use the word smarketing. I'm just kidding, I think. Anyway, we're going to be bringing on Conrad Sanders. He is the CEO and a lead strategist for the Creative Copywriter. He's going to be talking about his processes, part marketing, part sales, part art, part science, his processes and frameworks for building sales funnels. And Conrad has a really impressive track record. He's worked with huge companies like Adidas and Hyundai and TikTok and all of these other companies to do copywriting and funnels and a myriad services and things like that. So he's going to talk us through his frameworks and share what he knows. Before we bring on Conrad and get started, I just want to make my quick pleas for attention here. So first and foremost, if you have not already, please like our video, help folks find this session and our future streams. Secondly, smash that subscribe button, as the kids say. We host live sessions, Q&As, workshops, and all kinds of good stuff here on YouTube about every 2 weeks. So please hit the subscribe button and join us for future sessions on marketing, content, SEO, sales funnels, conversion rate, pretty much anything that has to do with marketing, sales, startups, etc. Number 3, if you've not already, I would highly, highly, highly encourage you to join our group. It's called Top of the Funnel. It's a free Slack community. It's made up of marketers, content folks, SEO people, both in-house, agency, freelance, and all things in between. Again, it's a free Slack community. You can join us there. We always promote all of our latest upcoming sessions, as well as share exclusive content, Loom videos, teardowns, and other stuff in there. There's lots of Q&A, link building opportunities, partnership opportunities, jobs, all kinds of stuff going on inside our community. So hop on over to yesoptimist.com/tofu, TOFU, to join our community, Top of the Funnel. We would love to have you. Okay, now I've got the advertising and the pitching out of the way. So I'm going to shift back to our regular programming. As I mentioned, we've got Conrad Sanders joining us today. He's a strategist and the CEO and founder of the Creative Copywriter. So now, with all the pleasantries out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Conrad. Hey, man, how you doing?
Yeah, good. Thank you. Thanks for the warm introduction and all the pleasantries. I mentioned to you just now that I've actually been a bit poorly over the last couple of days. So if anyone's wondering why my eyes look a bit glued together and perhaps I'm a bit pale or red, it's not because I've been drinking pints all day. It's just because I've been a bit under the weather. But yeah, other than that, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me. Shall I kick off?
Yeah, man. First of all, thank you so much for joining us today, and especially again for toughing it out, even though you're not feeling well. We really appreciate your time and looking forward to learning from you. Feel free to get things going.
No worries. I've got my hot mug of lemony honey water, so that will help me push through. I know you've introduced me, but I can I'll add to that introduction. So I'm the CEO and co-director of an agency called the Creative Copywriter, as you can see our lovely logo before you. And I'd say that in a very small nutshell, what we do is strategy and words. And to expand on that nutshell slightly, we combine the science of data-driven content strategy and psychology with the art of creative copywriting in order to help brands get their words right at every step of the funnel. Funnel being the operative word, because that's what we're going to be talking about today. And as you said, Tyler, we do work with a lot of big brands. You've mentioned a couple of our recent ones are Mercedes-Benz and Panasonic, which is quite exciting to onboard them in the same week, which is very nice. But we do also work with a ton of startups and scale-ups in the SaaS and tech sector. And in fact, I think that the methodologies and frameworks that I'm going to be dipping into today work especially well when growing lesser known brands. So with all that said, let's talk about funnels. That's why we're here. So funnels fueled by insights. I'll try not to use the words marketing. I wasn't planning to, but now it might just seep in. So
I think we should bring it back.
Yeah, bring it back. Every slide. Let's get it in there. I want to start by comparing funnels to dating. So funnels are a bit like dating. Now I've been happily married. I am happily married and have been happily married for 12 years or so now, believe it or not. But for the sake of this analogy, let's pretend that my wife, who also happens to be the co-director of our agency, kind of just got fed up with me and gave me the boot. And, I became a single man. And let's say that I decided to start getting into the dating scene through the modern medium of Tinder, which I never had the pleasure of using myself. But let's imagine that I contacted a potential partner, and this was my first message. Hi there, will you marry me? Now, just as a disclaimer, this was done in Photoshop. I didn't actually go into Tinder and propose to someone, but just to make a point here, I'm sure we can all imagine that as the first message to send to someone who's never met me before, this is a little abrupt, and how would they respond? Probably with something along the lines of, what the F, I don't know you, no thanks, get lost, creep, and other such things. And the question is, why? I mean, it's fairly obvious, I think, to us when we use this analogy. Why would I get such a response? First of all, they don't know me. They don't trust me. How can they trust me if they don't know me? And, they don't know what I have to offer in terms of, what's my value proposition as a potential life partner. So they don't know any of these things yet. And to kind of take this back to sales and marketing or smarketing, there's a comparison that we can draw in terms of funnels being a bit like dating, right? Don't take things too quickly, or they might get the ick, to use some Love Island terminology. Not that I watch it, of course, but in other words, they might get scared off, right? If you propose on the first date and take things too quickly, it's not the right thing to do. And the crux of the reason is that basically most people just aren't ready to buy yet. And this is a nice kind of visualization here, because it shows that this is obviously a generalization across most industries. In most industries, only about 3% of your target prospects are actually in what we call buying mode. So the people who are ready to buy, 17% on average will be just gathering information. So information gathering mode. 20% problem aware. So they're aware of the problem, but they're not yet, they don't know the solutions. They haven't yet discovered what solutions will solve that problem. And then there's a whole big chunk of prospects, potential prospects out there who might not be, who are actually unaware of the problem. And the reason why I think this is important to illustrate is because most companies tend to not understand this and get it wrong. And if most companies just go after that 3%, and as you can see, it's only a tiny portion of your target prospects. The problem with only going after the 3%, first of all, is that it's naturally very competitive. It's way more competitive. So when it comes to things like, cost per click and ad spend, you're going to be paying more per click because everyone's competing, and thus that pushes the cost per click up. So it's more competitive. They have more choices. There's more other competitors giving their value propositions, and your prospects are naturally torn between those different competitors. But I think perhaps more importantly, or as importantly, most companies are trying to sell to cold leads. So their messaging tends to just be pretty much the same across the board. And as I said before, it's like they're proposing on the first date. So they're trying to use the same content, the same messaging to the 97% as they are to those who are in buying mode. And in reality, the temperature of your marketing message should really match the temperature of your prospect. And I might, as much as we joked about it, I might say the temperature of your smarketing message should match the temperature of your prospect, because for me, I think that marketing and sales really should be part of the same thing. We're all gearing towards the same goal, and I'm going to be talking about that in a bit. And the point here is that the 97%, all of those prospects out there are in a state of uncertainty. They're not ready to buy, and it's almost impossible to sell to someone who's not ready to buy. And if you think about when you kind of pop into, let's say, a shoe shop just to browse, you're going in there to browse, for example, and the last person you want to speak to is the salesperson, because you just say, no, I'm just browsing. There's no way they're going to convince you suddenly to buy a pair of shoes if you just popped in your, let's say, information gathering. And if we look, again, just to back up this point, if you look at website statistics, average conversion rate of a website is 1 to 2%. Now, let's say you had perfect copy on that site, if there were such a thing, and perfect UX and perfect brand and a perfect offering, a perfect offer, again, if there were such a thing, you're still not going to be able to convert more than, let's say, 10%, 15% maximum, because people are information gathering. They're not ready to buy, and you just can't sell to people that aren't in buying mode. So I know you guys talk a lot about content marketing, and for me, this all kind of connects when we're talking about funnels. A content marketing funnel and a sales funnel are all very much and should be very much part of the same thing. And this is why content marketing exists, right? Because of all of those prospects out there that aren't in buying modes, that aren't searching, I want to buy this product right now. Because we use content marketing and we use funnels to attract, educate, and build trust with value-driven content, mainly to warm up the 97%, to kind of hook them, to be front of mind, warm them up, to get them into that place when they are in buying mode, and then for you to be that front of mind and that answer, that final solution, so that you can then convert them at the right time with the right messaging. In other words, stop popping the question, as I did back then with that kind of weird, creepy message in Tinder, and sell the next step. So obviously, if we're talking about romancing or dating, the next step or the first step might be flirting and then asking them to go on a date, etc., etc., etc. Way many steps before a proposal. But when it comes to sales and marketing or smarketing, it's really about understanding the 5 stages of awareness that your prospects are in, and understanding that whatever prospects you have out there, they're going to fit into one of these 5 boxes, one of these 5 categories. They're either going to be unaware, as I mentioned, so unaware of the problem that your product or service solves. So what kind of messaging, what should we do there? As we said, we can't sell to these people. They're unaware of the problem. You couldn't go up to someone who doesn't even know they have a challenge or problem and sell your product if you can't bridge that gap with one conversation or one piece of content. So what we need to do at this stage is educate them about the problem. So again, we're selling the next step here. We're taking them to the next stage in the funnel. Now, I've written tough job up there for this one specifically, because naturally it is harder to target prospects that are unaware, right? And when it comes to marketing solutions, products, brands, services, or whatever, generally we tend to aim for problem aware and below, because it's a lot harder. Obviously, it's a much longer journey to take them to that conversion point. However, it might be part of your strategy, longer term strategy, and kind of a wider reach goal to educate the world about the problem and educate those prospects about the problem that they might not yet know that they have. And that's the messaging that we need at that stage for those types of prospects. We need to educate them about the problem, and then they become problem aware, i.e., they know the problem, but they're not aware of the solutions to that problem. So what do we do at that stage? We need to educate them about the solutions. So again, it's still a little too early to just try and seal a deal and convert someone. At that point, they don't know what the solutions are. So naturally, that's where content comes in, content marketing comes in, where we educate them about the possible solutions. And at this point, they become solution aware. In other words, they know of solutions, right? So they're someone who's solution aware. They know of some solutions, but not you. They're not you aware. They don't know about your product, your service, your brand yet. So at this point, when it comes to the funnel, the content marketing and sales funnel, what we need to do is highlight benefits that favor your offering. And I'm going to give you an example in a second. At that point, they become you aware. This was traditionally called product aware by Eugene Schwartz, but I think it could be a bit misleading to say product aware because obviously sometimes we're selling services for etc. So I prefer to say you aware. They're aware of you. They're aware of your brand. You aware or brand aware. So at this point, this person, this potential prospect is you aware. They know about your offering, but they're not quite sure it solves their particular problem. They're not quite sure yet. They know you exist. They know something about what you do and that you're a potential solution, but they're not at that stage yet where they're kind of ready. They're almost in buying mode. Maybe they are in buying mode, but they're not ready to buy from you specifically. So what do we need to do at this stage? This is where it becomes more salesy, for want of a better word. This is where we can start to use, I guess, more of the conversion copywriting techniques and less of the value-driven content marketing techniques to try to push them towards that conversion. So this is where essentially our messaging should be all about trying to persuade them that you're the best. You're the best solution. Out of all the solutions that they have on the table, you are the best. Then they become most aware. So most aware or offer ready is another way of looking at it, which is when they know a lot about your offering and they're on the cusp of buying. So they know your value proposition, right? They know your USPs, they get it. And at this point, what we're aiming to do really is to push them over the edge and make them an offer they can't resist. So this is where we give them an offer. And I want to look at this again, but through an example. An example that springs to mind for me is copywriting, because naturally I run a copywriting agency. So I want you to think about how would you sell copywriting to someone who's unaware that their site isn't converting well, right? They're completely oblivious to the fact that they've got like a 0.03% conversion rate on their website. Maybe they haven't even looked at the statistics and they think everything is fine and dandy. As I said, I can't go up to someone like that, but perhaps they don't even know what copywriting is. They've never heard of it. I couldn't go up to someone, whether this is via the means of digital marketing or in person in a networking event, and sell my services as a copywriting agency, because they don't know what the problem is. They don't even know what copywriting is, perhaps at that point. So what we need to do is give them a piece of, let's say, content, which might be along the lines of, warning, your site is losing you money, and here's why. So we're kind of drilling in the fear factor here, which is a very powerful copywriting technique, and catching their attention and bringing their attention to the fact that maybe their site everything isn't fine and dandy, right? And we're then educating them about the problem. So then they become problem aware. So how would I sell copywriting to someone who knows that their site isn't converting well, but don't yet know about the reasons, or perhaps again don't really know about the art and science of copywriting? This is when a piece of content such as 21 reasons your site conversion rate stinks will resonate. And again, it's kind of in tune with their stage of awareness, and what it's doing is it's educating them and pushing them to that next step, which is solution aware. So now if they've read that piece of content, whether it's a gated lead magnet or a blog post. We'll get into that later. Now they should have some good understanding of why their site isn't converting well. Some of those reasons may be and should probably be, if I've created this content, to do with copywriting. But naturally, there's UX, there's design, there's branding, there's all kinds of reasons why, conversion rate optimization reasons why a site isn't converting well. And so your content shouldn't be just solely geared towards what you're offering at that stage. And then they become solution aware. So the next question is, how would you sell copywriting to someone who needs copy because they've been educated, perhaps they've come down this funnel, perhaps they've read the first piece of content, then the next piece of content, and now they know they need copy, but they're not sure where to look, right? It's kind of new to them. At this point, we might create, again, a lead magnet or a piece of content, which is along the lines of what to look for in a copywriting agency. So we're gearing them towards, let's say, an agency rather than freelancers, and we're also helping them understand. We want to, highlight things that would be favorable to us as an agency. For example, I might say, quality over price, because we're not the cheapest agency in the world, but we want to help them understand that you get what you pay for. So we're really bringing their attention to aspects that favor the end service and product that we're offering. So at this point, they become you aware. They understand, obviously, in this piece of content, we're going to be talking about us. Gradually, you become, again, a little bit more salesy the further you go down in the funnel. And they become you aware, right? They know we exist. They know we're an agency. Maybe they've entered at this point, or maybe they've gone down each of these steps and they've read our content and they've taken the bait, and they know that we're an agency and they know what to look for in an agency. So how would we sell copywriting to someone who knows that we offer copy and needs it? As I said, this is where you focus on your value proposition. Why we're the perfect fit for your web copy project. All right, this is what tends to be across the main pages of a website, because websites are usually geared towards, and often solely geared towards, prospects that are kind of lower down the funnel. This is where your USPs and value proposition comes out. And how would I sell copywriting to someone who knows all about how great we are? At this point, we'd kind of give them pretty much a proposal, perhaps. Get all of this value and more for this great price. What's the offer? What's the final offer? How do we push them over the edge once they're there in buying mode? Now, obviously, as kind of a content marketers, you guys know about top funnel, mid funnel, bottom funnel, tofu, mofu, and both. And I wanted to just sort of explain how that connects according to our methodology with these stages of awareness. Naturally, top funnel is kind of up there, further up the top, and tends to be things like social posts, blog posts, infographics, etc. Educational pieces of content, as we said. You're trying to push them down to that middle area of the funnel, which is perhaps where they become solution aware and product aware or you aware. And this tends to be gated. We have gated content like lead magnets, with a gate, with a form that they need to kind of download and give you their contact details. So we're trying to turn them into a marketing qualified lead, essentially, generally at that point. And again, that's where we can turn the heat up a bit more in terms of the temperature of your messaging and how salesy it is. And then bottom funnel tends to be that kind of closer copy. So email chains, drip emails, web pages, of course, as well, and case studies, and using kind of conversion copywriting techniques to really push them over the line. And to use another analogy, because I'm full of analogies today, from dating, we can go from dating to fishing. Not that I've ever fished in my life, but I would say, like, for me, top funnel content is kind of like the bait, right, to attract them. It's what you want to right at the top to attract your audience. Mid funnel is where you hook them, so it's the hook on the fishing rod, essentially where you're really usually trying to turn them into a marketing qualified lead, and then push them from that point towards becoming a sales qualified lead. And bottom funnel content is kind of where you're reeling them in and eventually trying to throw them in the bucket Again, you can probably tell I've never fished in my life, but this for me is the way that we should look at the funnel. So attracting, then hooking them, reeling them in and trying to convert them. But before we proceed, I want to talk about some of what I see as the problems with the funnel analogy. Because again, a funnel is an analogy, right? It's a nice way of our human minds kind of thinking about how sales and marketing works. Naturally, analogies are usually a bit oversimplified, and in reality, things are more complex. So problems with the funnel analogy for me are that, first of all, customers can enter at any stage, right? You think of a funnel, there's water going in the top, for example, coming out the bottom. But in reality, customers can enter at different stages. So it's not that you're taking everyone from unaware all the way down. Some will have been warmed up elsewhere. Some have been educated elsewhere, and they can kind of enter at any stage. They also often don't flow through in a linear fashion in this exact order. So these are just things to consider. And they do not necessarily go through every stage as well. It's never that simple. And on the left, you can see that this is another way of looking at the funnel, which I'm sure you guys have heard of: awareness, interest, consideration, evaluation, purchase. It's not always in that specific order, and that's just something you need to keep in mind. But also, those that don't convert can be useful to us. And I think that a lot of marketers and salespeople almost a bit too ruthless in terms of the funnel. They think that, right, we need to push leads in and then squeeze sales out the bottom. And then those that, the percentage of those that didn't convert into sales, they're kind of dead to us. That's it, dead weight, that end of. But the reality is that there'll be lots of prospects when it comes to content marketing, lots of prospects that come down that funnel that may never convert. They may never be in buying mode, or they may never be exactly the right prospect for you. You might not be exactly right for them, but that doesn't mean that they can't be valuable to you. And to throw in another analogy into the mix, I've described before, I've tried to turn the funnel into more of a chocolate fountain, where you think that, there are lots of prospects who might never convert, but they can be useful because they can be sharers of your content. If you send them back up to that top funnel, they can be referrers. They might influence other people, and they can still be very, very powerful, and they can help to bring other prospects down the funnel who may be, the type of prospects that are going to convert. So they're not dead to us. And the last thing here, which I think is the main point, is that when we look at just the traditional funnel analogy of top, mid, bottom funnel, there's a crucial part missing that most marketers ignore. And what we like to call that at our agency is after the funnel, AFU content. Now you might be thinking, Conrad, why should we give a crud about what happens after the sale? That's not our job. We're marketers. We're all about pushing leads and converting them. And my answer to that is that we, as marketers, our main KPI, our goal should be revenue growth. It shouldn't be leads, right? And I think that's often confused, especially in large companies where departments are siloed, and marketing, their goal is kind of lead volume, and it's handed over to sales, and then they go, our job is done. We got X amount of leads. Great, we've done our job. But if they change the goalposts and focused on revenue growth, both sales and marketing, again, back to the idea that we should all be rowing in the same direction, it would change what we do. It would change the content we create. It would change the decisions we make. So if we focus on revenue growth, it makes quite a difference. And there are three ways, if we're going to simplify things, to increase revenue. Three main ways. Number one, increase traffic, which again, I think that's where most marketers seem to throw their energy into, which is important, right? But increasing conversions is also very important, because you don't just want traffic bouncing off your website and not converting. And as we've said, the conversion side of this formula may require a few steps, because you don't want to propose on the first date, right? Conversion I'm using to kind of simplify that whole journey of taking people down the funnel. But the third way is to increase customer lifetime value. And this is highlighted because, again, I think this is possibly a metric that is overlooked by a lot of marketers. And it's important because, as we said, those are the three ways to increase revenue, which should be our end goal. So as marketers, we should be focused on all three: traffic, conversion, and customer lifetime value, i.e. what happens after the sale, for maximum gains and maximum ROI. And I'm going to throw some numbers at you, which, if you can optimize the entire journey, we like to call that, from a copy perspective, full funnel word optimization. The gains, the ROI that you can get is immense, as opposed to just focusing on, again, traffic and conversion. So here's an example. Let's say that we're just kind of getting micro gains across the entire journey, right? The entire kind of funnel and after the funnel. From traffic, let's say we improve the copy. Again, obviously from I'll be talking a lot about copy and content because that's what we do. Let's say we improve the copy of your paid ads and the landing page, and that reduces the cost per visitor by 10%. So it's just minor, from £2.50 to £2.25 for that, CPC. Then we improve the landing page. So we do some A/B testing and improve the landing page where there's a lead magnet, for example, just by 10%. So from 10% to 11%. And then we also look at that nurturing part stage. So we improve the email drips from 5 to 6%. So that's just a small increase. And then we also, again, most marketers would stop there, right? But if we then go and work together with the sales team, and let's say improve their collateral, their sales collateral, or work out a kind of little drip that happens after they have the sales call, when most salespeople might be kind of letting things slide. We can work together and work together with them, and let's say increase the conversion to sale by, again, just 10%, but also then look at post-sale care, so retention, upselling, referring, so making sure we're increasing the lifetime span of that customer, and let's say creating an email drip that encourages referrals and cross sales and encourages upselling, and then we increase the customer lifetime value by 10%. These are all kind of micro gains, right? But across the entire funnel, if we look at the whole thing, the entire journey, you can see that it just has an accumulative effect, which is massive. So looking at this current spend of 15K, where there's 15K profits, 100% return on investment, just these small tweaks. It could just be small tweaks across the entire funnel. And here we've got, a 230% return on investment. So it can be huge. And it's something that I strongly believe all marketers should be doing, is really focusing across that, increasing conversion rates, and optimizing that entire journey, including, as I said, after sale care. And just to juxtapose this with the earlier situation that I mentioned, which is when marketing teams just think about traffic, web conversions, and nurturing and go over to sales, our job is done. If you look here on the right, the problem with that is that you might even have a negative ROI. So this is quite an extreme situation, but if your goalpost is focusing on lead volume, you might be bringing in the wrong type of leads. Not all leads are born equal. The type of leads that are not converting as well, and maybe they're the type of leads that when they do convert, they don't spend much money. They're not retained for a long period of time. They don't refer. They don't buy other products or services. And by not understanding that, by not knowing that area of which often falls into the sales department's kind of remit, we might in fact be sending dud leads, or leads that are in fact creating a negative ROI, and we wouldn't know because our end goal is leads and even sales rather than revenue growth. So it's really important that marketing and sales are talking to each other, hence coming back to the word smarketing, which I didn't know I'd be using as much today. So just to recap where we've got to so far, number one, sell the next step. Don't propose on the first date. Number two, move your prospects through the 5 stages of awareness and try to understand at what stage of awareness they're at in order to know what messaging and content you need to kind of feed to them. And number three, also look beyond the sale to help increase that customer lifetime value, which is an incredibly important metric, and B, make sure you're actually pulling in the right prospects in the first place. So we've got all of that. That's kind of like an overview, a bird's eye view of the sort of the framework, the methodology of and what we need to be doing. But the question is, where should we start, right? How do we actually create drips or content, bits of content that fit into a funnel that we know is going to resonate and is going to do the job that we've laid out there, that is going to catch attention, is going to attract them, is going to hook them, and then is going to push them down that funnel and through, to the next step in the funnel. And this is where we would always say start with insights, right? Gathering insights. Don't create your marketing and or sales strategy based on assumptions. Assumptions can only get you so far, but the first step should be gathering insights. So try to understand the pains, the triggers, the desires, the perceived barriers, and the buyer journeys of your target prospects in order to influence them, in order to create copy and content that matches up and addresses those insights, those pains, those triggers, etc. Where to glean those insights? So where can we get that kind of data? First of all, an obvious one, surveys and polls. Send surveys out, right? Try to work out, what don't you know? We want to understand what's going on in the minds of our target prospects during that sales cycle or prior to it. So create surveys, use SurveyMonkey, Google Forms, send them out to your customers and or prospects. You can also use external agencies to do this. Exit polls on websites are great too, because if you're just surveying customers, those are prospects they've converted, and that's great and get tons of useful information. But what about the 97% or however many who aren't converting? All those people on your website, they're going, no thanks, not for me. If you can have an exit poll and get some information from them, that can be even more valuable, because then we're weighing up and getting data and insights from both current customers, those that converted, and those that aren't converting. And we can really use those insights to build our funnels and to impact our copy and content. Number two here is buyer interviews. This is what we do a lot of for our clients, especially when it's high consideration decisions. So let's say your brand or the brand that if you're a marketer working with a brand, let's say you're not selling pencils, but you're selling software, for example, where it, to large companies where it's a high consideration decision. What we do is jump on with prospects and customers, again, those who have converted and ideally those that didn't convert in the end, and talk to them and help them and get them to tell their story. And we transcribe it, we pick out quotes, and then we drill down into insights. And it's a very, 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 really great way to get, those insights that will then impact the copy and content ideas that you come up with to fill your funnel. So interviews are awesome. Focus groups, another way to get that kind of data. And of course, we can do things like keyword research, which is more of an implicit form of data collection. Again, keyword research is not all about ticking Google's box, but you can understand what people are searching for. So we get a certain level of insight there. What people type into Google can help us understand what their needs are, what their pains are, what their problems are, what they're looking for. So I'd combine all of this with keyword research, as well as using social listening tools like Agora Pulse, for example. And finally, slightly different angle here, competitor analysis. Now, all of the other, data gathering methods I've listed here were more about understanding the mindset of your prospects, of the people that you're trying to nurture and convert. But we also want to make your offering and your content and your brand and your value proposition uniquely compelling, because it's all very well creating a funnel of content and copy that kind of ticks certain boxes and addresses their pains. But what if there are 20 other companies doing exactly the same thing? Your prospects will likely be being pulled down various funnels. And if you're saying the same thing in the same way and there's nothing unique about your offering, you're much you'll get swallowed up in a sea of sameness. And there are so many copycats out there, lookalikes and soundalikes, that it's also really important to zig while the industry is zagging. And to do that, you need to understand the landscape. You need to do competitor analysis so that you can find that sweet spot of what you truly offer as a brand, that your competitors aren't offering, and even create content and a tone of voice that is uniquely compelling to them. So once we gather all of this information, another really cool thing to do, especially if you're doing buyer interviews and surveys, is to highlight and gather voice of customer data. So by that, I mean the actual words and phrases and language that your prospects are using, especially anything that jumps out, that looks nice and powerful, or anything that is common. You see this word being used by 100 prospects or 6 prospects that you've spoken to. Those words and phrases can be woven into your copy and your content and your email drips and everything. And we know that they're much more likely to resonate because they've been used by the very people that you're trying to convert. So voice of customer language and data is a really, really powerful thing that you could use to weave into your funnels, into your content funnels, to make them more powerful. And here's just again, don't try to read all of this because there's a lot of text on the page, but I've just nicked this from one of our clients, whereby this is where we gather the information after doing buyer interviews. We transcribe, as I said, then we pick out quotes that fit a certain category. So this category is desired benefits. Like I said, we have pains, triggers, desired benefits. There's comparison factors and buyer's journey and perceived barriers as well. So there's different categories that you can fit them into. So we'd grab quotes that at this point feel like these are the end goals that the prospects are looking for. And we would distill down to the key insight, and then we'd write a copy content idea that addresses that. So, in this case, an email in the drip that focuses on configurability, because that's what the prospect was talking about as being something they really need and want. So we've got all the insights, right? Like I said, start with data gathering, start with insights. And this is where we come to build our funnels. And for us, we've got something called a customer acquisition map, or a CAM, which is basically a flowchart, fancy looking flowchart. It might look something like this, perhaps more complex, perhaps less complex. And we'd always start with traffic, right? Where are the traffic sources? Where are those prospects coming from initially? PPC, social, organic, guest posts, their journey is likely to be different, and you want to control that journey. You want to manage that journey, and you want to impact that journey. So we'd start with traffic, and then we'd figure out, right, PPC, where are they coming to? We've got, at this point, the marketing qualified lead conversion stage, which might be a series of blog posts leading to gated content, gated lead magnets. In some cases, we might just have the gated lead magnet. And then at that point, that's the hook. Back to the fishing analogy, we've hooked them, right? We've got their contact details. This is where we want to use email marketing, which is still very, very powerful and becoming increasingly so, especially during COVID, where they're no longer just a statistic. They are now a name and an email address, and we can start to carefully create drips, which I'll talk about in a second. And I would also always combine that with remarketing. For me, your drip and remarketing ads, the messaging can mirror each other, right? We know what stage they're at. We know that they've taken the bait. They've been hooked. They've landed on a certain landing page. So that tells us something about them. So we can control the email drip and the remarketing and kind of hit them from 2 angles at the same time. But of course, you want to know where's that drip leading to, and that's when it, unless it's leading to another lead magnet, it would often be pushing them towards the sales stage, which might be a free demo, it might be a free consultation. Obviously, we want to make the barrier as small as possible, hence offering free things. And again, don't forget to look at post-sale and to think about, referral schemes, cross-selling, and really enhancing and increasing their customer lifetime value. It can get quite complex, but it's worth it. This is an example of what a CAM looks like when we work with one of our current clients. For us, we always first draw out what they're currently doing. So all the black circles here are what are their current funnels. For these guys, as you can see, they're skipping a lot of stages, no nurturing, no MQL conversion, and the stats were showing that. So we then, all the green circles were the ideas we had for really controlling, enhancing the flow and those funnels and that journey. So it's really, really useful thing to do. And I realize my time is running out, but I think I'm okay. A large part of what you just saw there was obviously email drips. It's kind of that bottom funnel stage of they've gotten the lead magnet, right? And now what do we do with them? And I wanted to kind of home in on that area and give you some tangible tips for building an email drip in order to kind of take prospects from that MQL stage to kind of the SQL stage and push them towards conversion or wherever the end goal is. So insight-driven email drips. We're starting with a lead magnet, right? That's the hook. The cool thing about lead magnet is that you can kind of get an idea for what, you need to write down, what do you know about them? If they've taken the bait or the hook or wherever we are in this analogy, we should have a good idea about what stage of awareness they're at. If they've read a piece of content about something, we know that we've educated them and we can understand from that, oh, they're at that stage of awareness or they're kind of that warm. And then you want to obviously plan out, where do we want to take them to? Are they ready to kind of be pushed towards some kind of salesperson at the end of the drip? If so, we need to plan the email drip that takes them there. And this is where we come back to our insights. So, for example, email 1, day 1 might be thanks for subscribing. Here's the value we're going to be drip feeding you. For us, we often create an email that actually even comes out before they get the lead magnet. And it's an email that sets them up for the drips, because sometimes they're just going for the magnet, but we want to kind of get them excited about all the value that we're going to be providing them, because these emails aren't all going to be salesy. They're going to be about 75% value driven and 25% salesy, sales driven. So we often start with this, like, thanks for subscribing. Here's what you're going to get. We're going to be dripping you this, this, and this, and this. And this is what we know about you. And hey, we understand you, we get you, that kind of thing as a first email. Then maybe day 2, email 2, this is where we could tell a story that preempts a common perceived barrier. How do we know what a common perceived barrier is? Because we did that insight work at the beginning. So for example, if cost is often something that keeps coming up, cost, then we might write an email which is called cost versus value, you get what you paid for, right? And then you tell a story of how, whether it's a client that you've worked with or just an analogy of how, the prospect, the person that kind of went for the cheap service didn't get the value that they needed. And we're kind of like swerving that barrier, we're preempting it, so that we warm them up and we're kind of doing the job of what a traditional salesperson would, which is like, handle those objections. Email 3, day 4, maybe now we'll tell a story. Again, storytelling is very powerful in emails, which has a valuable insight focused on one of their main desired benefits. Again, we know that because we've gathered that data at the beginning. Then email 4, day 7, this is where we might tell a story again that preempts another perceived barrier. Again, we're starting to heat up here, so the temperature's getting hotter. The next email could be telling a story about how we solved the challenge for a person, company just like them. So we're weaving case studies in here. And generally, again, email 6 for us is like where we hit them with everything. It's like all of our conversion copywriting techniques, sense of urgency, sense of scarcity, to push them to that next step, which should be a minimum viable commitment for them. So like a free demo is perfect in the SaaS world, because a free demo is not this huge commitment. It's like, okay, 14-day free demo, it's kind of a no-brainer, but we still need to use conversion copy to really push them to that next step. Or it might be a free consultation, which is another kind of typical thing for a service company. So a few little tips about creating an email drip, start with more frequent emails and then space them out. If you think of the Fibonacci sequence. So as you can see here, day 1, then 2, then 4, then 7, then 11, then 16. The idea being that we actually want to get them used to opening emails rather than just hitting them when we want to kind of convert them. So start more frequently and then you can space them out. Weave case studies and more promotional content into valuable stories. Don't just go, we did this for a client like you, and this is why we're great. Just tell the story of like, oh, here's an interesting story that could give you some value, and kind of weave those in subtly. So it's still not too salesy. But again, the further you go along in this drip, the more salesy you can be. And like I said, generally we try to go for 75% value driven, 25% sales driven, even in these bottom funnel email drips. To recap, again, sell the next step. Don't propose on the first date. Move your prospects through the 5 stages of awareness, but also look beyond the sale to increase customer lifetime value. Make sure you're pulling in the right prospects. Number 4, start with insights, not assumptions. Understand their pains, triggers, desired benefits, perceived barriers and journeys. And number 5, draw out a flowchart, a customer acquisition map, and make sure you're hooking them with high-value lead magnets that trigger insight-driven email drips that are gradually increasing that temperature, so getting more salesy as you go along, but still focusing on providing value within each email that you send out. And I realize we've got maybe 8 minutes for questions. I've got a free download for you guys, which hopefully Tyler can kind of send a link out. But over to you, Tyler, in terms of like, if there are any questions and I can tackle them in 8 minutes, I'll do my best.
Conrad, that was awesome, man. Thank you. First of all, thank you so much. If you anyone in the who's joining us right now, if you have questions for Conrad, drop those in the chat. I will relay those to him now. And then also, Conrad, do you know what the URL is for your link? I can put it up on the live stream right now for folks.
That is a great question. For this, because what I could do is send the link to the actual the slide deck, which will have it in there. How about that? Shall I stop sharing?
Yeah, you can. That's no big deal.
There we go. And where shall I drop that?
Good question.
Private
The chat.
Sorry, some kind of chat somewhere. I'll drop it.
Oh, there we go. There we go. Okay. Yeah, I'll grab that URL. I'll post it here in the on the stream. In the meantime, we do have a question here. A couple questions. So first of all, how do you approach this type of marketing if the client has an established email list but a low open rate? So I guess do you have any tips or strategies or tricks for kind of re-engaging an existing email list?
Really good question. I think it happens a lot. I'd loop back to that word I kept mentioning, which is value. I'd try to understand what the company has done in the past. Right now, we're talking to quite a big company where literally what they did in the past was shoot out brochures to an email list that they bought, which is the worst sort of marketing that you can imagine. Let's buy a list of cold, unsuspecting prospects and shoot a brochure out. So try to understand why the open rate is low, and you I would imagine that it's probably because maybe it was too salesy. Maybe the email subject lines were too focused on them and, hey, we can do this for you. And probably to re-engage that audience, I'd pull back the temperature. I'd come back down and go, here's some value we can offer you. I'm not trying to sell you anything. Here's a free here's a blog post or a free ebook or something that will just give you value, and there's no hidden agenda there. So again, I'd try to re-engage them through value. And obviously there are some copywriting tricks when it comes to email subject lines to increase that open rate, because that's often such a huge barrier. Just the fact that people see the email subject line and it doesn't do enough to create curiosity and intrigue them enough to open the email. So I'd say go value driven and look at some email subject line formulas, copywriting techniques to really build intrigue there so they actually open the emails in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. And one other thing too, just to go back to kind of what you were talking about, I think as well, is to consider, right? If it's a cold email list, you have to assume that they're in the unaware stage at this point, right? Like they're not really engaged with your brand. Like, so, kind of going back to that stage and then thinking about the messaging and the content that really aligns with that, someone at that point.
Exactly, 100%. Especially if it's cold. Yeah, if it's a poor email list, they've got no idea who you are. So you definitely need to take them through the funnel.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Great. So real quick before we jump to the next question, I grabbed this link out of the slide deck. So if you want to grab Conrad's guide here, you can hit it bit.ly/13 lenses. That'll take you to the download, and you'll be able to grab that from him.
Yeah, shall I just quickly explain? 13 lenses is a framework we've used that helps to optimize copy and content at every step of the funnel. But potentially what I can also do is you can also give that link to these slides themselves. So just everything is open
Oh, okay, great.
and if need be, we can follow up, because I know we didn't really plan this part. So we can follow up and you can shoot it out to everyone that attended.
That sounds great. Yeah, I can definitely do that. Yeah. So if you're on the list, or again, if you have joined top of the funnel, I'll go ahead and make sure that link gets out to everyone there. Cool. Let's. We got one more question here. How do you tackle a business where there are large competitors who already have a very good set of content?
Yeah, really also good question. This comes to the zigzagging part that I mentioned. I think this is like really good competitor analysis. And I don't have it up, but like if you think of a Venn diagram whereby, first of all, as I said, always understand the audience, right? You need to get those insights, understand what you offer authentically as a brand. So that's the other circle in the Venn diagram. And then look at what competitors aren't doing, right? There might be a lot of competitors out there with good content, but to be honest, you usually look in most industries and it's copycats and lookalike. So look at what they're not doing, and then you want to find that sweet spot in the middle of what your clients want, what competitors aren't doing, and what you offer and what you authentically offer, and hopefully find this little gap in the middle where you can, almost like a niche, whereby you can create content that's uniquely compelling. And you know what, there's just excuse the cliche, but think outside the box. If everyone's just writing long form written content, use GIFs, throw some GIFs into the content, like think of new mediums, mix it up, and just there are kind of, and branding, brand design and things like that. You can even make content come to life and be very uniquely different just through getting a really good brand designer to enhance it.
Yeah, that's great. If I can just add to that, I think like for us, that's one big thing that we try to do is we definitely use competitor analysis, and especially from kind of a content and SEO perspective, we want to see what the competitors have and where they're getting traffic and that kind of stuff. But we also want to sort of construct that journey from scratch and say, what, as you said, what aren't they doing? Where are the missing opportunities? Because I think in the content marketing and SEO world, I think a lot of people lean too heavily on just look at all the keywords that my competitors rank for, and that becomes my plan rather than really think through it themselves.
100%.
Awesome. I had a question for you, Conrad. I know this is a little bit more tactical, but obviously you talked a lot about gleaning these insights and talking to customers and that kind of stuff. I know from our experience and from talking with other folks that that's often a big challenge. It's just like getting people on the phone, like getting people to actually talk to you and share interesting information that you can then apply. Do you have any tips or insight there about how to get those folks on the phone and talk through those?
Yeah, it can be a bit of a barrier. It can be tough. I mean, I would say that like using a third-party agency can help. It can, not to kind of direct people towards agencies such as ours, because it can help those prospects to open up. It's like they're not talking to the salesperson that converted them. And yeah, it is a barrier. I mean, in some cases, what we've had to do is the next best thing is talking to the salespeople in the company that we're working for. It's not ideal. You want to get insights from their customers, but for us, sometimes they've just said no. The type of people that we sell to, they will never jump on, or we won't allow it for whatever reason. So then, what we would do is talk to the salespeople and say, imagine, think of one of your most recent kind of customers that you've onboarded or clients. tell the story, you know, go through what were their pains, what happened, and I guess that's the next best thing. I don't like the fact that I'm saying that, because I think it really should come from the end customers, but sometimes that's all you can do.
Yeah.
And you know what, even just a half an hour call with someone you can get so much from if you record it and transcribe it.
For sure. Yeah. I'm a big fan for a lot of our work. If we're doing like secondary research, we'll dig into like product reviews sites, so like G2 and Capterra, and you mentioned really using that like voice of the customer kind of research to figure out how are they thinking about this, because I think that's another big mistake that I see from at least like a content marketing perspective, is people want to frame everything through the lens of the product rather than through the lens of like the people who are buying it. What's the benefit that they're getting, and how are they thinking about it?
Yeah, exactly. That kind of implicit data collection where you can exactly go around the web yourselves. If you can't get them actively involved in giving you data, look at reviews, go into Reddit, right? Go into Reddit and see what people are talking about a certain subject or topic or a product, and get, as you said, like voice of customer is so powerful because it's coming from them and not from you.
For sure. Awesome, Connor. Well, we are at our hour. So first of all, I just want to say thank you so much again. Amazing workshop here, and lots of awesome insights and tactical tips. For folks on the live stream, as I mentioned, I will make sure this link makes it out to everyone who signed up, and also to our group in top of the funnel. So please, again, if you have not already, join us there. yesoptimist.com/tofu, and we'll see you on the next live stream. Thanks again, Conrad.
Thank you. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.